what is something most people don't realize is a privilege. It's been happening in Sydney and Melbourne, Australia for decades. So many students, both local and international, plus people immigrating from overseas looking for a better life. These people are living 4 to 8 plus person conditions in 2-bedroom apartments in the central business district. Landlords put up flimsy wall dividers and people even pay $1 to sleep on the balcony in a tent. One day, there's going to be a fire, a big one. Only then will something be done about it. The fire situation is what worries me as well. There was an illegal dwelling, concert space in Oakland that burned like 5 years back, and even so I don't think anything really got changed. My parents used to say to me that open door is a requirement under their roof. Mom used to sneak up behind me while I was chatting with my friends online and go like, "What are you doing right next to my ear?" I've been living away from them for over a decade, yet I get many panic attacks when I'm just by myself at home using the computer sometimes. Jesus, if I had to live like that, I'd have my desk facing the door, office style, so I could see someone walking in at least. Maybe you could do that now, even though nobody is gonna walk in on you. Might tease your mind a bit. People don't understand why I'm so protective of my privacy, but they also don't understand that I live in a household where privacy is nearly non-existent. I don't even have a lock on my bedroom door, because so many people asked. The lock wasn't on my doorknob. It was a latch that was attached further up the door, which I could lock from the inside. I don't know how common this is, but it was there when I was born. To be honest, in my country locks on bedroom doors are pretty rare, but the idea is that privacy is so important that generally speaking you don't need one because it's respected without the need of a lock. The very idea that you can have a bedroom door that looks was foreign to me growing up. Lol. I was a very well-behaved, quiet kid. I don't say this to brag or whatever. I genuinely was. My favorite activity was reading books and playing with Barbies, and when I grew up I was playing video games, chatting with my friends on MSN Messenger, and reading books most of the time. Never got in trouble with school or any other authority, yet my parents thought if the door was closed that meant I was up to no good, so they'd either barge in or be like WHREUDOING. I can't imagine the existential crisis if the door had been locked. Me too, buddy. Me too. I was quite a boring teenager. I listened to classical music and played video games and had no desire to go out and drink, party, date, or have sex. Yet my parents always thought I was going to run away and do all these things if they kept their eyes off of me for a second. That's apparently what all teenagers do. I was shocked to learn just how much freedom my friends, what few I had, got. This has impacted me in so many ways. I didn't qualify for enough in student loans, government assistance because it was just assumed my parents were giving me hundreds a month in assistance. So that imaginary amount was deducted from my benefits. I'm not alone. This has hurt me so much. I literally got kicked out at 18 and live on my own. But because my dad earns $170K/year, I missed most aid. Apparently he is expected to give me $20K/year. Well, fuck. This, at the worst point in my life, when I was trying to leave a toxic job but was going to lose my housing because of it. My brother stepped up and let me live at his place while I looked for work. A few years earlier, he'd spent his last few euros to show up at my door with broken glasses and no money for food or transportation back home, and I took care of him for a few weeks and sent him back with some cash to tide him over, and new glasses. Now, he and I are both doing well for ourselves, but I'd never have gotten out of the hole without him. Now a friend is going through something similar. Reduced hours at work due to the pandemic, no family support because they just came out as non-binary, can't afford rent and their debit card declined on 2 days worth of groceries, and I felt so good about being able to send them enough money to live on for a month, without it really affecting my quality of life. They also know they can show up at my door and live in my spare room and my boss will give them a job, if they end up deciding to move to my city. You are a good one, Charlie Brown. I had a friend like that. I was down in the dumps, Girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend, roommate at the time, contract didn't get renewed on a job, scraping together about $50 a month for groceries and such after paying my bills. He found some gift cards to help me out, and let me crash on his couch when I needed to. Helped me through a really tough period. A handful of years later, he was laid off from a dying industry and my company was starting to take off. I hired him and retrained him as a PM in the tech industry. But we've lost track of how many times we've come through for the other during tough times. Not that what we do to look for repayment, but life has a way sometimes of keeping the karma flowing. Again, you're one of the good ones. I've watched this friend overcome alcoholism and depression, get treatment, deal with toxic family bullshit, and move to a new city with a lifestyle that suits them better. They just interviewed for and got offered a new job, where the interviewer recognized them from online content they've done, where they could be open about their identity at work. I'm not about to stand by and watch my friend lose all that progress over a rough patch during a pandemic. As long as you're involved in your kid's life, you're far from being a shitty parent, I'd say. My mom and dad split before I could even form a memory of them being together. I ended up spending the early stages of my life with my mom. Then one day when I was about 3-4 years old, my dad came and picked me up from my mom's house and we moved to another state, with my mom's consent. And I didn't hear a word from my mom for the next 10-12 years after that. She didn't bother to try to get in contact with me, and you can't put that burden onto your children. You should always reach out to contact them and see how they are doing. That is a parent's duty. She sent me a birthday present on only one single occasion that I remember, and that was just a one-time thing. Aside from that, my dad taught me how important a good work ethic is, whereas my mom doesn't really believe in working. She'd rather find a man to take care of her. So the fact that my dad taught me how to be responsible and take care of myself definitely plays a big part in me not turning out to be a bum roaming the streets with no guidance. Just offer your kids support and remember that they need just as much emotional support as any other human being needs. Be kind and they will never hate you. Just love them. Remember, they are little people. That's the big advice I always give. They have thoughts, opinions, hopes, dreams, likes, dislikes just like you. Just cause they're little doesn't mean they shouldn't be respected. I'm thankful my mom taught me this. I have a great deal of mutual respect with both of my teen sons. I'm their mom, but they know they can always be honest because I'm not gonna hold them to some impossible standard. Be there for them. You'll do great. Sounds like they are already lucky to have you for a dad since you're asking questions. Adding to that, a stable and safe home life. Now that I'm an adult, I realized how lucky I was to have parents who were good and loving but also prioritized a safe, stable, calm home environment. They actually thought about creating a warm, safe environment, and I didn't know that was a thing you had to consciously do until I got to adulthood. They never fought in front of us, rarely lost their tempers with us, stuck to a routine and structure to where there were always hot meals, clean clothes, a clean home, and they let us have our own space to just relax and decompress. I noticed in my teen years that certain friends always wanted to come to my house to hang out, which I thought was weird because my house was kinda boring. But now looking back, I can see that they liked the safe, calm atmosphere at my house and wanted to come relax. My parents consciously chose to make our home a safe retreat from the world, and I'm so grateful. I've met so many people over the years who never had the ability to relax at home, ranging from just really active schedules where they were shuffled from activity to activity and rest and relaxation wasn't prioritized, to people who had really turbulent, abusive homes, and now as adults they have a really hard time relaxing or cultivating a recharging atmosphere at home. I literally had to lay out some steps for my friend of things you can do to make your home more comfortable and relaxing because they just didn't know how to do it. I had a few girls from school that would follow me home and invite themselves into my house. I was friendly with them, so it was alright, but I later realized it's because my house didn't have any smoke, alcohol, violence, shouting or screaming children. Some of them were so unfortunate that I ended up just giving them some of my stuff because I didn't want need it, and they did. My parents have their moments and can be very annoying, but there's always been food in the house, electricity, clean running water, and a lockable bathroom door. My friends that didn't have that really struggled, but I didn't quite see it as a teenager. I relate to a lot of what you said. It sounds like you grew up with a lot of stability. I also grew up in a quiet, peaceful home and neighborhood as well. Looking back now, I wonder if I am a calm person because of that, since a child's environment has such a huge impact on them. We live in a very fast-paced and constant stimulation world. In my area right now, moved to a bustling city, I see a lot of kids having anxiety and hyperactivity. I wonder if there is a correlation. The people in the apartment below us had them and let it get real bad. I asked the exterminator guy about it, and he said he wasn't allowed to comment on other people specifically, but that he'd been around a long time and had never seen anything like it. We eventually had to throw away all of our living room furniture, basically anything with upholstery, and our bed. We also had all of our possessions except for the bare essentials in airtight bags, and because those fuckers can live for a year or more without feeding, we moved and lived with almost all our stuff sealed away for over a calendar year. It was difficult, but worth it because we would have broken down having to deal with them returning while we had a baby on the way. And on the plus side, when we started opening things up again, it was like 100 Christmases at once. I never expected how much it would affect me. It's absolutely terrible. Anxiety-wrenching insomnia giving little fuckwits. I couldn't do anything to them until I saved up for a treatment, because if I did they'd have to treat the whole house and I could never afford it. So I just slept with them for a year. They bit me every night. I could feel them. I'd wake up and crush them just by rolling over. I could smell them. There were thousands by the time we could kill them. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Genuinely anyone. I never knew how much I'd appreciate the lack of something until they were dead. I moved into a roach-infested apartment almost 2 months ago. The last people destroyed the place. The manager killed the first round. Figured it was good because he didn't see any bugs, and moved us in. The bugs started coming out as soon as our stuff was in. We had no choice. This housing boom is insane, and this is what we could afford. They were everywhere, in every corner of every room. I panicked every night and had to drug myself to sleep so I'd stop watching them crawl the walls and ceiling. I called a pest control company and took the cost of treatment out of rent. Luckily, we had no fight from the manager. We're now a little over a month after the first treatment and they are no longer there every time I turn around. I was finally able to start turning all the lights off at night a few days ago. I'm still not ready for my bed to touch the wall. As long as nothing touched my bed, the roaches stayed off. My 5-year-old still has a bit of anxiety about going into the bathroom by herself. She was terrified of them and would run screaming when she saw bugs. I'm still scrubbing roach feces out of every corner, every hinge, and sealing every crack they could be hiding in. If you mess with closet tracks too much, roach bodies still fall out. I moved into a brand new apartment block in Brisbane many years ago and the place was infested with tiny cockroaches. They mainly lived in the gap behind the shelves above the kitchen counter. I complained to the owners who refused to do anything and told me a cockroach here and there is nothing to worry about. One day when they did an inspection, I asked them to watch while I lay some paper towel down and sprayed bug killer up behind the cupboard. Second later, about 30 roaches fell down. They still didn't do anything, so I moved out. They refused to give me back my bonds, so I reported them. I'm only starting to realize this since I moved into my first best free living situation last year. I grew up in a farmhouse that was infested at various times with mice, flies, ladybugs, moths, spiders, wasps, and God knows what else. Spent freshman year of college with an ant infestation that we inherited from the previous dorm occupants. Then the rest of college in a shithole apartment that housed almost as many filthy roommates as it did mice, roaches, fruit flies, ants, spiders, and centipedes. Now I have an extreme fear of bugs crawling on me, and I've had panic attacks on the few occasions that pests got into my new apartment. Pretty sure my roommate thinks I'm crazy, but I can't mentally handle another infestation. I used to be generally okay with bugs until I lived in a roach-infested house. It started out as a crap hole, but we kept it clean. When the landlord who owned the house next door moved back, he had his place cleaned and they moved to my place. They were everywhere. My dad had the place sprayed for me, but it was absolutely infested. I'd open the microwave to warm something up and roaches would scurry back into the holes inside. Now when I see one, I immediately call my pest control place. Never again. Last time I was hospitalized, they gave me 4 morphine instead of the regular pain management I was on, and there was just a sudden, painless moment and I started crying happily. Except I was in hospital and couldn't go do anything while not having pain and ugly cried. And now the pandemic knocked us onto Medicaid, which means no pain management in this area, and I just, day to day. If I had 5 minutes I'd probably run for joy too far to make out back within the time limit, fall over, and live on that patch of ground for a bit. But it would be exhilarating. So true. If I call out sick from my current job, my boss says, "Okay, feel better." At toxic old job, I'd get a guilt trip and the 3rd degree. Taj also had us on timers for every single activity because they did not believe we would do our work without them. We were also forced to come into the office on Saturdays because they didn't believe we could handle working from home. No matter what you did or how well you performed, they always believed you were lying to get out of work somehow. It was stressful trying to constantly prove myself and manage their paranoia. This is so true. As someone who battled a chronic illness for most of my life, some people take good health for granted. It wasn't until last year when I met my new primary care doctor who literally changed my life. Thanks to his help, I no longer have said chronic issue. I started to keep a gratitude journal last year due to the pandemic to train my mind to focus on the positives when everything around me was so bleak. More than a third of my entries were about how lucky I am and how alive I've felt since I was under his care. I will also include a PSA to everyone who is reading this. Please take care of yourself. That means drinking plenty of water and doing a simple exercise such as walking around your block or a quick hike on a trail. Anything that will keep your body active. My grandmother is currently in a nursing home and she is barely able to walk around by herself. She relies on a walker, and she eats like a teenager even though her metabolism hasn't worked like it used to when she was in her 20s. Her eating habits were bad for years prior to being admitted to the nursing home. She never exercised and consequently gained so much weight that even the most basic of physical therapy is too much for her. Edit. Thank you for the awards. The ability to just eat whatever you want without having to read the label and make sure it doesn't have something that'll fuck you up. I have celiac disease, which means if I eat gluten, it damages my small intestines, so I can't eat gluten, ever. And guess what? It's in all sorts of stuff it shouldn't be in. And because the amount we can tolerate is so little, cross-contamination is a huge problem. That makes eating out at restaurants difficult, and eating at other people's houses difficult. My kitchen has a gluten-free area, and smaller gluten-tolerant area for just my husband in case he wants bread. I already have a lot of chronic health issues, but not being to eat gluten is difficult, and socially harmful. This really resonates with me. I'm also celiac, and it's amazing how stressful it is to need to think through and plan ahead for every single thing you put in your mouth. Dinner with friends? Do I know where we are going and what I can eat there? No. Well, I either have to advocate for something I can eat or plan on eating beforehand. How about getting home after a long, tiring day? Can't grab fast food or a freezer meal, unless I want to pay $5 for it. So I really hope I have leftovers sitting in the freezer or it'll be a hungry night. Parties? Hope I ate earlier or that others have dietary restrictions. Birthday cake is the worst with the come on just a little piece. What about that road trip to the middle of nowhere? Well, I had better pack granola bars because I definitely can't eat somewhere that the waitress says what's gluten. Maybe I'm going somewhere that I don't speak the language. I either have to learn real quick, stick to touristy areas that everyone speaks English, Learn how to make the traditional dishes, to see if flour is an ingredient, or eat a lot of lettuce and granola bars. Oh, and those granola bars, they are a privilege too, since they cost at least twice as much as the gluten-y ones.